Alright, so in this video we're checking out another Cinewhoop, and this is a custom build. This frame is called the Honeypot 2.5 from AirBlade UAV. It has also just come in a 3-inch version. They are both somewhat similar. I haven't had a chance to try the 3-inch version, so I can't say for sure exactly. Now, I built mine quite highly modified. I'll put a photo up here of what the frame should look like as it was designed, but I have changed it somewhat. There's like a top plate here that the Vista goes under and the battery goes on top of that. I decided not to put that on just to reduce the weight, because as it was, I think just the frame only was about 60 grams. So yeah, for 2.5-inch props, I thought it was a little bit on the heavy side. This is still pretty heavy even as it is here with the weight reductions. The other thing I changed was the height of the standoff right here. So there's 8 of these, and it was pretty tall. I think it was like 25 millimeters, and I put in some shorter ones here that just basically have the nut that holds on the bottom part of this prop guard. And you see this, it's a 2-level prop guard here, and there's a piece right here that goes like this that I removed as well. I didn't install that, just again to save a little bit more weight. Now the frame itself is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, so what I would recommend is first attaching these 2 side pieces here to the main plate here, and on each side, so there'll be, this looks like a Y, one over here and one over here, and screw that on, and there's a nut that goes underneath, and then there's all of these pieces here that form the prop guard. So basically they're going to have a bottom and a top piece right here for this section, and of course you want to install that optional one if you want to put that piece in there. But I think that once you kind of put all the pieces together, don't tighten everything down, but just kind of like put them all in by hand, and then once you've got everything sort of lined up, at that point then you want to go ahead and tighten down all of these screws. If you want to lighten it up even more, I would suggest taking these steel screws out and putting nylon screws in. Of course, if you crash really hard, these nylon standoffs are probably going to break, but it's always a trade-off between weight and durability. So that's probably the next thing I would do, is to reduce the ways to change these metal screws or steel screws and put in nylon screws instead. Now the way the camera is mounted up here, and the GoPro mount, or the naked GoPro, is I'm using the Beta FPV V2 case here, and this is all custom as well. I'll put a link in the description at some point once I upload that to the Cults 3D site. And then I decided to put the Vista unit back here. And by the way, all these parts here are actually from the Alpha A85 HD from iFlight. So that's the Vista, or actually the Nebula, Caddx Nebula with the Vista Air unit. And the flight controller is the iFlight all-in-one Whoop flight controller, and the motors are the 1303 5000 kV motors. I did change the props. These are the new HQ T2.5 by 2 by 3 V2S props. So a little bit more pitch, and the blade's a little bit wider than the V1 of the T2.5. So it's a little bit more grip, a little bit more power, but still pretty efficient. You'll see that you get pretty decent flight times on this. And of course the Whoop board here is mounted underneath, and there's Whoop mounting holes here. There's also mounting holes for 16 by 16, I believe, and 20 by 20. So you can see 20 by 20 right there. So you can mount various other flight stacks. And the reason I decided to put the shorter standoff in here is you can see plenty of room for the ground clearance for the props. And I just felt like it looked a little bit more sleek. If you want to go underneath stuff, just add that little bit less, 5 millimeters of less of height, and that's why I went with this. The other thing is, if you and you probably think, oh, it's carbon fiber. If you're flying this indoors, this will leave marks on your walls. Especially if you have white walls, you'll have nice black marks all over when you bump around the walls. So what I would suggest is just getting like a piece of foam or something, and then just putting it on the front, and you can just cover the whole prop guard here in the front from this section all the way over here. Of course, that's going to change the characteristics of this Cinewhoop, because once you start blocking airflow, then you're going to get weird prop wash effects and such, and also the noise will be different as well. So with the way this setup here is with the sort of open cage design, you really have no effects from the prop guards other than the weight, because there's not as much turbulence from these prop guards in this configuration compared to, say, like something with a prop guard with a wall or something with a duct, like a more traditional Cinewhoop. Those things have different noise and flight characteristics than something like this. If you want something that's going to fly more like a 2.5-inch micro versus a Cinewhoop, this is going to fly more like a 2.5-inch micro. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think that for this size, if you don't want to worry about kind of parts you want to get, I would suggest doing what I did here with the Alpha A85. Just get those parts. Everything moved over really easily. I didn't have to do any soldering or anything like that. And everything's plug and play, including the plug here for the Vista unit. I just got a longer version of this plug because the one that came on the A85 was shorter. So I just got the same plug that came with another Vista Air unit that I didn't use. And it just plugs in straight here. The plug is the same order, so you don't have to actually change anything. And I just soldered that to the Vista back here and mounted it to these holes here. You can see that there's a mounting hole pattern for a 20 by 20, and it's just some screws going through like so to mount the Vista in the back there. I have my battery vertical and sideways, and I'm using this ReelSteadyGo Quad 650 milliamp hour, and it's going in like so. And I think I was getting like 4.5, 5 minutes of flight time on this. I probably could have flew for longer. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I'm using my own custom parts here in the front for mounting the cameras there. It does come with a different camera mount. I think, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this is what the camera mount looks like from AirBlade UAV. This is included. It's a little bit different. I mean, I wanted the Vista camera, the Nebula, to be a little bit lower. So you can see the profile, and the camera is not sitting quite as high as you can see here. It's a little bit lower, so it's kind of what I did. I wanted a little bit lower profile vertically, so that's why I decided to make my own parts. But of course, the parts that come with it will work just fine. All right, so here is how much it weighs. This is going to be tricky. There's a hole in here. So it's roughly 114.5 grams. No battery and no GoPro. So I'll put the battery on. And 175 or so. And then the GoPro, naked GoPro. And now we're coming in at just a little over 200 grams for the whole Cinewhoop. So not bad. Anyway, for those of you guys that were asking me for an alternative to the Beta FPV 95XV2, this is a pretty good alternative. It's it's a little bit heavier, of course, with the carbon and everything, and then the prop guards are way different. But this has different flight characteristics. It flies more like a 2.5-inch quad versus something like the 95X flies more like a whoop. So if that's what you're looking for, maybe if you want to do a little bit more acrobatic flight or a little bit more aggressive flying, but yet you still want to get that nice buttery ReelSteadyGo footage, then yeah, this might be something you might want to check out. So yeah, put a link in the description to the frame. The build's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions about how to do that, let me know in the comments below. Here's the flight footage, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. I've got a pretty basic tune on here. I kept the RPM filter settings from the Alpha, and I think these are just, let me think here, PD balance is 1.3, I believe, on the slider, and PD gain is 1.1. So nothing too fancy here in the tune. It's a little loose. I am running a 4S650 from ReelSteadyGo quads. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little loose. It's a little bit of a breeze, but not being affected nearly as much as some of the other models out there, because it is kind of a cage design where the air can just kind of go through. So it's fairly unaffected by the little bit of a breeze we got. But yeah, I think I could probably increase probably the PD gain. It's a little bit tough going through that tunnel there, a little bit of wind. Yeah, I definitely need to increase the gains a little bit, so not the perfect tune, but you guys are probably seeing the footage from ReelSteadyGo. I imagine this is going to be pretty solid. .8 volts, about 2.5 minutes. Yeah, the wind is definitely picking up now. It's still affected by those kind of areas where the wind's kind of swirling around. So it's not completely immune to wind. Voltage is holding pretty well, 14.5 volts, almost 4 minutes of playtime. Yeah, it looks like we're starting to drop now. 14.3 volts. 4.5 minutes, so I imagine 5 minutes is totally doable. If not more. Of course, I'm just kind of cruising around, not really doing much, just chilling. Pretty efficient. I think I like these HQ props, these T2.5 by 2 by 3 V2S pops. 14.2 volts, 5 minutes. Take it down to 14 volts and land. Kind of cruise around a little bit more here. .1. Some people coming. All right, call it a day here. 5.5 minutes, 14.1 volts. Let me know what you guys think.